So let's go through a couple examples from 1.2.1, solving equations. So for this first example, I see that there are parentheses, and so our first step will be to do the distributive property. So I want to distribute this -4 into the x to get -4x. Then I want to distribute the -4 into the 10 to get -40. I didn't do anything with the 2 equals over here, so I'm just going to rewrite that part. So now I see that there's 2 things over on the right-hand side, and so I want to figure out which one of them to move to the left-hand side. On the left-hand side, I just have this 2, which is just a regular number. So I want to look on the right-hand side and move the regular number, the constant. So 40 is our regular number, and it's being subtracted. So to undo that subtraction, I want to add. So I'm going to add 40. And then whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And so I get 42 equals -4x, and those 2 cancel. Finally, my last step, as I notice that these 2 are squished together, I know that they are being multiplied, and to undo multiplication, I would want to divide. So I want to divide both sides by -4. And if I do 42 divided by -4, I get -10.5. Those 2 will cancel, and I'm just left with x. And this is my answer. If I wanted to check my work, which is a question on your test, and it's a good habit to get into either way, all I need to do is I need to take my answer, so this -10.5, and I need to plug it in to my x in my original equation. So I'm going to do that below. So I have 2 equals -4 parentheses, and then wherever I see an x, I want to put my answer, which was -10.5. Then I have plus 10 in the end of my parentheses. So now what I need to do is I just need to simplify this. I can type this whole chunk into a calculator if I want. I can also do that part in my head. So I have 2 equals -4. If I have -10.5 plus 10, then I have -0.5 left. And then -4 times -1/2 or -0.5 gives me a +2. So now I need to look at my answer and ask myself, is this true? Well, yes, 2 equals 2, so we are correct. If it was not true, then I would know that I did something wrong, so I'd want to go back in and fix it. So let's do the second problem. If you're still struggling with these, I would highly recommend drawing a line down your equal sign. And then for this problem in particular, I have a variable on both sides, and I also have a constant on both sides. So I can really start with whatever makes more sense to me. I would say I don't really like this -4x over here, so I would want to get rid of it by adding 4x. If you instinctively have a different first step, like you would rather add 17 or something to both sides, that is totally fine. This is just my instinct for a first step. So 6 plus 4x gives me 10x. I still have -17 equals, those cancel, and I'm left with 28. So now again, I have two things on the left-hand side and only one thing on the right. So I want to figure out which one is friends with the one on the right. That is my minus 17. So I want to add 17 to both sides. And I'm left with 10x. Those cancel, equals, and then 28 plus 17 will give me 45. And lastly, I want to get rid of this 10. Since the 10 and the x are squished together, I know they're being multiplied, so I want to undo it by dividing both sides by 10. My 10s cancel, and I'm left with x equals 4.5. So again, it would be a great idea for you to quick check your work. It doesn't take very long. This one has two variables that we need to account for. So let's start with, it says 6, and then in parentheses, I want to put my 4.5. And then I have minus 17 equals negative 4. And then again, in parentheses, my 4.5. And then plus 28. So if I type this whole thing into a calculator, 6 times 4.5 minus that 17, I get 10. And then if I type this whole thing into a calculator, negative 4 times 4.5 is also 10. So I want to ask myself, is this true? Does 10 equal 10? Well, yes, we know that that is true, so my answer is right. So this is basically two of our problems that we've been struggling with. So the first one with distributive property, second one with variables on both sides. I hope this helped with solving equations.